What's up, guys? Today we got the S23 versus the S21 FE, and this is a very interesting comparison. If you are holding on to your S21 FE and you're thinking about upgrading to the S23, it's a pretty interesting comparison. The S21 FE is actually one of my favorite phones that's like ultra cheap. You can find these like 161 excellent condition, and I really like the phone. And one of the things that I like about this phone is it actually gets One UI 8. So the other S21 phones don't get it, but this one does. So it'll be, really interesting when that comes out. But yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. I like this upgrade. So if you are thinking about this is a great upgrade in, I think, almost every category. And yeah, but you might not have to really rush and make this upgrade, honestly, because you have another major OS update on the S21 FE. But there are some things that you should definitely know. I think the main upgrade here is going to be with the CPU, and I think you guys can let me know what you guys think about the cameras. But hardware wise, the S23 is definitely a little bit more compact. It's not to say that the S21 is a big phone, because it's not, but it's a decent size phone. Here you have a plastic back on the S21. It doesn't really feel cheap though, because you do have these metal sides, and I do like the design on here. It's a very nice looking design. This phone actually has some really great colors, like a really nice vibrant like red color, and then I think they have like this olive color that I really like. This purple one is pretty nice too. It's a bit dull, but I do like it. Yeah, hardware wise looks great. They're both IP68 dust and water resistant. You have a matte finish on the S23, and it is also premium design, glass and metal. And yeah, so overall hardware, it's not that much different, and like I said, the plastic back does not feel terrible. Alright, so let's talk about the displays. You have a dynamic AMOLED display on the S21 FE. It's a 6.4 inch panel, 1080p 403 for the PPI. We have Gorilla Glass Victus. We do have slightly thicker bezels here at the bottom. Not by a crazy amount, but it is a little bit thicker. The top is actually really not that bad on the S21 FE, and it's a bigger display, as you guys can see, 6.1 versus 6.4. And the S23 has a similar display. It's the dynamic AMOLED display as well, 120 Hz HDR10+. It does have a 1750 nits peak brightness, and it is 1080p 425 for the PPI, and this has the updated glass, the Gorilla Glass Victus 2. Colors look great on both of these phones. I don't have an issue with that. Honestly, the displays look extremely similar, guys. So it really is just the size. The S23 does have a better max brightness for outdoors, so that's something that you will notice. But overall, guys, the displays are pretty good on both of these phones, so it won't be like feel like a huge upgrade. Phones are running One UI 7 very smoothly. And here are the Geekbench scores here. I believe these are my best scores that I got. And yeah, so as you guys can see, you do get a better score here. You do have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, 128 gigs, 8 gigs of RAM. And then you have the Snapdragon 888, 128 gigs and 6 gigs of RAM on this base model. There is a 8 gigabyte of RAM version here. Let me make sure this is actually, yeah, this is a 6 gigabyte of RAM version. So as far as speed goes, the S21 FE, it doesn't feel slow. Like, it's pretty smooth. It's pretty much on par with the S23 in terms of animations, and pretty much being consistent, just coming in and out of stuff. But as we load up, if we loaded up like a ton of applications, the S23 would be a lot smoother because we have more RAM, and overall the processor is just a little bit more powerful. Also, if we come into our Wildlife Extreme, you can see we get a big jump. Well, not a big jump, but we get a noticeable jump in terms of our average FPS. And yeah, just opening applications in general performance will be a little bit smoother if you load up like a lot of applications. But I think general performance on the S21 FE is not bad. The Snapdragon 888 processor is not bad by any means. It's not my favorite. It does kind of, to me, heat up a little bit when you're doing like more intense stuff, but I've never actually had a problem with this phone here in particular. So as you guys can see, it's able to keep up with the S23 perfectly fine. animations are really consistent. That's why I said this One UI 7 update did a really good job with the S21 series, I think, in general. But as you guys can see, it's still a little bit faster. Okay. Okay. Try PUBG here. Now with PUBG, like I said, the gaming performance is going to be, I think, a big difference, right? Because you're going from, 60 frames to 120 frames on the S23. So it's kind of, a big deal if you're into competitive gaming. And just overall, it's just going to be able to just play games, emulators a lot better if that's what you're into. I would say if that's not a big deal, the S21 FE still does a pretty good job. All right, so for example, guys, the S21 FE could play at only extreme, so 60 frames. Again, we have 120 frames here. Very smooth. And I've never run into an issue playing games, Call of Duty, PUBG on the S21 FE, but like I said, for competitive gamers, it's like a night and day difference playing at 60 versus 120 on PUBG and, for Call of Duty. And, the emulators run a lot smoother. So I think, if gaming is a priority for you, I would save up that money, that extra $150, whatever, and just make that kind of sacrifice to upgrade because it is worth it. You also have another advantage with the S23 here. Because it is, a true flagship, you do have your AI features. So we actually do get quite a few AI features, and I think we're missing like some small stuff like audio eraser, and I think one of the health things is not here. So you might be missing some small stuff, but like the stuff you see here, it is indeed here, and you get to experience, the AI features, and also the S21 does have the updated Gemini, so that's here, which is nice, and your circle to search is here on the S21 FE as well, so that's nice. But if you want, more of a fuller experience with the AI stuff, then the S23 does have that. Check out these speakers at max volume. So I actually do like the S23 here. It sounds a little bit more crisp, a little bit cleaner. I think the bass is a little bit more clear. Just the overall, it's just a better balanced speaker. The S21 doesn't sound bad, but you can definitely hear that it just sounds a little bit better. And your fingerprint scanner is also ultrasonic, so it's a little bit faster than the optical one on the S21. As always, the pictures are kind of a big deal here when we do these comparisons. So the S21 FE has a 12 megapixel standard and 8 megapixel telephoto with 3 times optical, which will get you all the way up to 30 times zoom. We also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 4K 60 with a 32 megapixel selfie that can shoot in 4K 60. The S23 has a 50 megapixel standard, 10 megapixel telephoto, 3 times, can also get you up to 30 times. 12 megapixel ultra wide can shoot in 8K 24 and 30. And then you also have a 12 megapixel selfie that can shoot in 4K 60. Now, you will actually be surprised, but the S21 FE actually has pretty good battery life for me personally. I've never had an issue with battery life on this phone. It does have actually a bigger battery than the S23. It's 4,500 milliamps versus the 3,900 milliamps. But the S23 also has good battery life because of the processor. They both charge at the same speeds at 25 watts, unfortunately, so they both don't really charge that quick. And they both actually have wireless and reverse wireless charging. So I actually think they're kind of more even on the battery department here. But I get excellent battery life with the S21 FE. So I think it really comes down to the things that we discussed today. And be sure to let me know what you guys think.